Alrighty, so this is just We the People News again at it. And this is going to be a continuing part, right? 19 things how we incriminate ourselves. Never look straight forward, always look around us, be able to protect ourselves by any means necessary. Once again, for all y'all out there, this is more from my records. It's the reason why I got this YouTube. One of the reasons I have this YouTube is to put on here and I can go back easily accessible for me. All right. Let's proceed forward.
Any more evidence of that? Just look at the police encounters with good people. There's just, it's not the place. It's not the time. It's not the place. But that is the scene of the crime. Mm-hmm. That's what. Excuse me. That's what George talks about when we need to assert our rights. We have to do so at the scene of the crime. So that brings us to rule number 3. Every case that you are involved with will eventually be decided by the United States Supreme Court. Did you guys know that?
No.
Mm-mm. So every case that you are involved with will eventually be decided. Now, it doesn't mean that your case is going to go all the way to the United States Supreme Court and then be decided. Chances are the issue or the major federal question, see if you notice on the bottom of the screen there, it says you must create a major federal question as the action pertains to your rights. So this is what happens. Is like, let's say, for example, you've had a couple drinks, you're driving home, cop pulls you over, and he arrests you for a DUI. Okay? After he arrests you, instead of taking you directly to a magistrate for a determination of probable cause, as is your right, he just takes you straight to jail. Then you sit in jail for a couple of days, and then you have an arraignment hearing, and you're sent on your way for your trial. That police officer just divested the court of subject matter jurisdiction because he didn't follow proper due process of law. So now your case is no longer about whether or not you were driving drunk. Your case is now, why did you guys deny this man his due process rights? That's the major federal question. And those questions have already been decided by the Supreme Court numerous times over. So you guys have to keep that in mind, is that as you're moving through these processes, whether you're going on offense against oppressive government officials or you're being prosecuted by your government, just know you got to create that major federal question. You got to get that in the back of your mind, is to go, okay, what have you guys done to violate my rights? And Mr. Gordon says this. He's like, if they're going to violate my rights, I'm going to be more than happy to help them. So he'll actually say, if he said before that if he's going to be arrested, he says, are you going to arrest me? And the officer says, yes, I'm going to arrest you. He says, are you going to take me to a magistrate? Or are you going to take me straight to jail? Oh, I'm not taking you to magistrate. I'm going to take you straight to jail. Oh, okay. You see how that works? Now you have the evidence that you need to back up and say, hey, I asked to be taken to a magistrate, as is my right. They denied me my right. This is exactly what the courts have said. And what I'm learning is that if you want to take a case to court for a redress of grievances for violations of your rights, as stupid as this sounds, you have to vehemently demand your rights from these people and then watch them to violate your rights. Okay? Next rule.
So, James, when you ask the police officer then, can you take me to a magistrate?
No, not can. I demand
or
that
will
you take me.
Yes, instead of saying, are you going to? Because if that you're giving him a choice as opposed to saying, I would like to be taken to see a magistrate.
Yeah, here's the other thing that George points out and that I really love about him. And he says this too, and I want to make this very clear. He says, guys, if you're not having fun doing this, then you're not doing it correctly. You should be having fun. This shouldn't be scary. This shouldn't be something where you should be fearful. This should be something where you're just having a good old time. And he says, but you have to understand too, they may take you to jail. And as long as you know that you have rights and that they're going to violate those rights and then you're going to be compensated for those violations of those rights, then you've got nothing to worry about. So that's one of the things that he brings up is he says every time I have any interaction with any government official, I demand my rights. You know, and you're going to hear, again, the recording from Georgia stuff is back in 84, 85, 86. He uses the term sovereign citizen. We already know that term has been misconstrued, and courts now treat people who claim themselves as sovereign citizens as terrorists. That is ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's absolute asinine and ridiculous.
Yeah.
But it does not change the fact that, here's what's interesting. The terms sovereign and citizen are actually synonymous. Synonymous. That's a hard word to say. Synonymous. There we go. Okay? We are all sovereigns. We are all citizens of this great republic. That's just the truth. So if the courts don't want to accept that, well, that's not my problem. That's theirs. And they're going to have to determine, and they're going to have to tell the higher courts, why did you violate this man's rights to due process? Did he not demand them?
Isn't the distinction that he makes have to do with U.S. citizenship, not citizens of the Republic?
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, he does talk about where, and again, I don't want to get off into the weeds here. He does talk about how, you know, there's the corporate citizen and then there's the citizen of the Republic. He does talk about that. But at the end of the day, you don't need to argue things that are just irrelevant to your case. I don't argue stuff like that because it's irrelevant to my case. What's relevant to my case is I'm a citizen of this republic. I have rights that are guaranteed to me by my creator and that are secured by the Constitution for the United States and the Constitution of my state. That's it. Yeah. That's all I care about. So.
Yeah, I mean, and even in simpler terms, I'm a free child of God and no man stands over me.
There you go.
You can't tell me what to do. You have just as much value on this planet as I do.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to hear the courts will say people, well, I'm a free man on the land, or I'm a free woman on the land. You'll hear that all the time, too. And the courts treat those people as frivolous litigants, even though they have a legitimate argument. But because they're choosing to use terms that, have been misconstrued the wrong way before. I mean, that's just ridiculous to me.
Well, they're doing it on purpose. It's gaslighting to keep exactly. People backed down and backed away from exercising their freedom. Exactly.
All right, that brings us to our next rule. Rule number 4. We will accept nothing short of total victory or total defeat. Okay? I took this directly from George's outlines. This is what he said. I dare say that we would just get rid of this total defeat. We will accept nothing short of total victory.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So that's why I have down here on the bottom, give me liberty or give me death. Well, not really, but it sounds cool.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? That was, oh gosh, why can't I think of his name? One of the founding fathers who spoke about that. Give me liberty or give me death.
Patrick Henry.
There you go. Thank you, Patrick Henry. Yeah, it's... When you go into these situations, you must be able to fight it all the way through. And what do I mean by that? So I've helped a few people who have been criminally prosecuted, and where I'm helping them, sometimes it feels like I'm more invested in the outcome of their case than they are.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying I'm not helping anybody right now. I'm just saying in the past I've helped a few people, and I'm trying to help them, win their cases. But it's like I'm more passionate about it than they are, and that's a real problem.
Mm-hmm.
I can't be passionate about winning your case. I want to because I want you to win, but you have to be passionate about it. You have to be. I will accept nothing short of total victory. So that's what you have to. You have to be willing to fight this again. Like I said, rule number 3, all the way to the United States Supreme Court, if that's what it takes. Okay. So let's move on to rule number 5. And this is why we go to the Supreme Court, because what is or is not law can only be determined by the Constitution for the United States as well as the constitutions for each of your states.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh, what?
You guys hear that? Sorry, it just started echoing on the Instagram feed. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. Erica, you want to read that little line at the bottom there?
The Constitution is the supreme law of the land. Article 6, Supremacy Clause.
That's right. It's Article 6, Clause 2. So a lot of people know that and refer to that as the Supremacy Clause. And that's because it is. The Constitution is the supreme law of the land, and any laws that are made in pursuance thereof. What does that mean, in pursuance thereof?
It has to be in alignment with the spirit of the whole thing.
Exactly. You cannot make a law that contradicts anything that is proposed or that is codified in the Constitution or enumerated. So enumerated means written out. Okay? So any law that is passed that is repugnant to the Constitution, according to the United States Supreme Court in Marbury versus Madison, is null and void. Right?
Right.
It's repugnant. Any law that is repugnant to the Constitution is null and void. So void for effect. So, but what's happening here is the American people have been brainwashed throughout all of these years of education that the legislature
Terry versus Idaho, right? It's pugnant to the Constitution. The Supreme got it wrong due to a racist ruling.
the laws, and that whatever the legislature says goes. Does that make sense to anybody? If the legislature passes a law that says you can only fly your flag on your front yard on certain days and you can't on others?
It doesn't make sense, but understanding like human psychology, it makes sense. They do such a good job of training us over and over and over throughout the years to avoid getting in trouble.
Yeah, and that's the sad reality is that we have all been indoctrinated, whatever you want to call it. We've all been believed or trained to believe that we must do what those in authority say. But my question is, why don't we ever question that? Why don't we ever question authority? You're going to notice as we get moving on further into our rules here that there's a rule here that talks about that. So, rule number 5, what is or is not the law will only be determined by the Constitution for the United States. Okay, so rule number 6.
All righty. We're going to end it here and do a continuing part. All right? These will be the People News. Bye, y'all.